You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
It's Monday. That means it's an all-you-can-eat buffet of Pierre McGuire, but we like to call it McGuire Monday around here at Toronto Sports Rush. Pierre, incredible weekend of hockey action, but of course we have to start with the Toronto Maple Leafs because it appears as though their GM search is down to two names, or so goes the rumors. We're looking at Dallas Stars assistant GM Scott White and former Phoenix Coyotes GM John Chayka.
Well, Scott White is a guy that I know really well through Dallas, obviously working for Jimmy Nell. He spent a lot of time doing some really good work. They're both on the negotiating side, the American Hockey League side, and also with the Texas Stars, and also obviously in terms of scouting, running a scouting department. He's really well adapted, and he's learned from Jimmy Nell, who I think is one of the better hockey guys running an NHL team right now. Very understated. And Jimmy learned really well from Scotty Bowman, Jimmy Devellano, and obviously Kenny Holland. So I like guys with pedigree that have actually learned from hardcore NHL people, and Jimmy Nell's taught Scott White a lot about the game and about how to run it for an office. So I was really intrigued to hear his name. In terms of John Chayka, he's come up his own way. He's created his own brand. He's an analytics guy through and through. So if they actually want that to run their hockey team, then maybe he's the guy. If they want to be more of a balanced hockey analytics guy, then maybe White's the guy. So if in fact they're down to those two, it's been a very thorough search because this has lasted a little bit longer than a lot of people anticipated.
Yeah, and for those that think this team needs to lean more into analytics, it is worth noting a couple of points about John. His sister is actually the founder and president or owner of a company called StatLeaks, which is doing some of the best work in data analytics across the NHL. And I believe she's also a personality on TSN in Canada. And he owns 12 Wendy's. Him and his wife have a company that owns 12 Wendy's franchise. So I don't know how those two things tie together, but there's a potential sponsorship.
I used to own a lot of Wendy's Tim Horton stock, so I kind of know where the company's gone. So that's pretty good.
So there you go. And another update from the Leafs over the weekend, and this one's a little more interesting, Pierre, and I want to get into it a little bit. We saw William Nylander post on his social media basically something of a love letter to the city of Toronto, saying how much he loves the blue and white and how he can't wait to compete for this team next season. And then next day we saw him sitting courtside at the Raptors game, featured prominently on the big screen and on television. I think there might be a lot behind this. One thing we discussed over text messages was if this is maybe a turn of his attitude a little bit, which we did comment on this season. It's a good piece of timing and a good look for them.
I remember telling you and talking with you about it, Kyle. If they're bringing him back, they got to do a sit down with him and have a hard discussion. You either want to be part of the solution or you're going to be part of the problem. We don't want any more guys that want to be part of the problem. We need guys that want to be part of the solution. And so part of it is how you interact with your teammates. Part of it's how you interact with the fan base. Part of it is your behavior, how you conduct yourself in society, whether it's courtside, up in the press box, how you walk into the rink, all these different things, how you practice. And I think it's pretty, this is a good example of what you and I talked about. And I wasn't trying to be mean to anybody out there. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Playing in Toronto is not that hard. Playing in Toronto is actually an amazing gift. It is a fantastic place to play. It's a great place to live. I've lived there. I've worked there. I've spent a lot of time in my adult life there. I think it's a fantastic place. And to be part of an original six organization like the Leafs is phenomenal. Either he wants to be part of that or he doesn't. And I look at John Tavares as a really good measuring stick. And John chose to stay there. John chose to go there, and John chose to stay there. And there's a reason why. It's a really special place. It is.
Yeah, perhaps they've had that sit down with him already, Pierre. And I almost wonder something about this weekend's events. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but it did seem a little bit coordinated from his social media post timing to being courtside at the Raptors the next day. But that could also be a positive sign that they have learned from their mishandling of Mitchell Marner last year in the offseason, which ultimately led to his departure. Is that possible?
That's the first thing I thought of when I was watching this. I was thinking they're not doing Marner again. And I remember, again, we talked about that. There had to be something that had to change because they totally destroyed the Marner situation. That was not handled appropriately. He eventually leaves. They don't get nearly the compensation. Or maybe they did. Look at Nicky Roy in the playoffs. He's ripping it over.
Yeah, of course.
He leaves Toronto and all of a sudden becomes, 50.
He was going to be great somewhere, Pierre.
He's going to be good. But in all seriousness, I think it's such a good point that you're raising, Kyle. I think he learned a lot about, or the team learned a lot about how to treat star players. And I think that's part of it, the lessons they've learned from the Marner situation.
Yeah, I would almost hope the fan base can take a look at this and say, no, this is not contrived. You're seeing this team evolving and how they treat these players and how they handle negotiations and how they handle the future of whatever direction this team is now going to take. For him to publicly state he's on board now, he's certainly redeemed some of the rather odd behavior he had this year, in a year which he still did pretty well.
It's interesting that you said that so eloquently, because I could never do it as eloquently as you. So I'll just say this. There's been a feeding frenzy towards Keith Pelley. It's been pretty nasty. I would not have any credibility as a person that works for you in this network if I didn't voice a true opinion. I've known Keith Pelley a long time, 26 years to be exact. Keith hired me at TSN. I could have gone to a lot of different places. I sat down and talked to him about a lot of different things. And he's a man of honor. He's got vision. He's not afraid to take chances. Sometimes he picks the wrong way, and when he realizes he did, he moves on from that. But he's not disrespectful to the people that he may have hired that he made a mistake on. I've done Olympic Games with him. I've done a lot of different things. He's a visionary. He's smart. He's not afraid to take chances, but he also understands the value of a brand. This is so important, what I just said. He understands the value of a brand, and the Leaf brand is mammoth. It's not just a little bit big. It's mammoth. It's a Goliath. They've got to get the brand back to where it belongs. And if anybody can do it, I'm telling you, he can do it. People just have to give him a little room to run here. He hadn't been making those hockey decisions. Other people have been making those hockey decisions that have been dreadful decisions. Just give him an opportunity to rebuild the brand, and you'll see he will do it. He will do it.
Yeah, Pierre, it's not really fair to pretend that the operations part of rebuilding a franchise in Toronto is the same as doing it in Nashville. It's just not the same thing.
No.
It's a cultural institution, and it's a league-wide institution, and it does require possibly a little more delicate of handling. Yep. But let's move on to the hockey that is still being played. And I'm going to use that line every week because the Leafs are not part of that contingent. However, there are still 6 series remaining, 2 that did finish over the season. And I couldn't help but think, watching that Montreal game yesterday, that they let a 3-1 lead in this series slip away from them.
They self-destructed in Game 4. There's no question about it. Part of it is its lack of discipline. I have never seen so many high-sticking penalties or slashing penalties in a series as what I'm seeing in the Tampa Montreal series. And Montreal knows better than that. They're coached up. And I think Tampa knows better than that too. I don't know what's going on with the players, but clearly there's a whole lot of vitriol in this series. There's no question. I've watched every game from start to finish. I've done all the pre- and post-game shows on the Montreal side of things. And I would just tell you this, and quite frankly, Montreal should be up in this series 3-1, whether it was them winning Game 2. Remember Lane Hudson off the post in the third period on a power play. If he scores there, it's over, and they win. There's no overtime. They're up 2-0. They win Game 3. They're up 3-0, and maybe they lose last night, but they're up 3-1 going back for Game 5. They've got to become more disciplined. To your point, you're so spot on. They self-destructed in Game 4. They did. They self-destructed. They got to get it back on the rails now.
It almost feels to me like you would almost have desperately wanted a 3-1 lead in this series, because I think now in games 5, 6, 7 is when a team's experience will start showing, and Tampa Bay has been to this dance many times, and this is somewhat uncharted territory for this young Montreal team.
Very fair, but I think Montreal learned a lot last year against Washington, which helped them. But here's the one big thing. I saw what Montreal was trying to do in Game 4. They identified the need to make Ryan McDonagh feel pain. They went after him physically more than I've seen at any juncture in the series. Something to watch. They went after Nikita Kucherov. The Jake Evans cross-check penalty to Nikita Kucherov, they hit from behind, which eventually led to a 5-on-3 that Tampa didn't score on, but it took a lot of momentum away from Montreal. That you could see. They identified the need to punish Kucherov physically. I know there's a 3-day break between Game 4 and Game 5. I understand that. But you see the way this thing could swing. If Montreal can continue to get to those guys, now it's harder because they don't get last change in Tampa. But if they can, maybe as the series goes along, the younger legs take over. But right now, I would agree with you. The veteran presence of Tampa definitely is making a difference.
And Carolina completed the sweep of Ottawa. Pierre, a series result. I'm not shocked that Carolina moves on, but I was a little bit surprised Ottawa didn't even manage to take a game off them.
1 for 21 on the power play is going to kill you every time. You had 3 5-on-3 chances almost for a full 2 minutes in the series, and you didn't score once. If you're Ottawa, that's no good. The penalty kill and we talked about this going into the series for Carolina was going to be an important part of it. It dominated. Their penalty kill dominated, and that's Rod Brindamore, Jeff Daniels, and Timmy Gleason. The coaching staff there did a great job preparing their guys. Ottawa never adjusted. Shame on them. I know people don't want to take a run at him. That's Daniel Alfredson's wheelhouse. He's in charge of the power play there in Ottawa, and I get he was a great player. I had the honor of coaching him the year he was Rookie of the Year in the National Hockey League. Great player, great person, amazing ambassador. But that's on him. And I get the media doesn't want to go after him. If that's anybody else in Ottawa, they're going after him. But it's a legendary person, so they're not going to take a strip off him. But that was a big part of that series, the inability of Ottawa's power play to score. And the last thing I just want to say, it showed you how great Jake Sanderson really is. Once they lost Jake Sanderson, and he wasn't 100% going in, but once they lost him to an injury after a high hit from Taylor Hall, I could have told you that series was over. They weren't winning that series. No way.
Yeah, and now after 2 straight Cup final appearances, the Edmonton Oilers find themselves on the brink of elimination, falling again to Anaheim yesterday. This team's not right, and they've met a team in the first round that seems to be playing their version of hockey a little bit better than they are right now.
You deserve so much credit, Kyle, because before we came on, you said something that really resonated with me. It's the first time in a long time they've met their match in terms of a team that can match them offensively. And people don't watch Anaheim a lot. I understand it's late at night. You got to work the next day if you're on the East Coast. Leo Carlson's the real deal. Mason McTavish is the real deal. Cutter Gauthier is the real deal. These are young guys just finding their way in the National Hockey League right now. Troy Terry's the real deal. I don't think people realize Martin Madden Jr. is the chief amateur scout for Anaheim. He has done a masterful job accumulating talent for Pat Verbeek, who's a general manager who just got a contract extension. But the best thing that happened in Anaheim last summer, and I'm not playing politics with this, they signed the best free agent available, Joel Quenneville. You watch the way Joel Quenneville interacts with his players on the bench, and you can see he's large, he's in charge, and the players know he's been there before. 3 Stanley Cups as a head coach, 1 as an assistant coach in Colorado. He's the real deal. And the biggest thing I can tell you, Kyle, he wasn't rushed into his job. He started as an assistant coach in the Leafs organization, as a playing assistant coach in Newfoundland with Mark Crawford. He ends up going to Colorado with Mark after coaching the American Hockey League for the Hartford Whalers in Springfield. He was groomed to be a coach. He's not just like a lot of these guys are just coming out of playing and thrown right into the deep end, see if they can swim. That's not how it should work.
No.
That's not how it should work. And that's why teams rush into hiring these big name personalities, because I think social media is playing a role in all this. And Anaheim's a perfect example. We're not doing that. And as soon as they hired him, I remember saying to a friend of mine in the league, ooh, I wouldn't want to be LA and I wouldn't want to be San Jose, because this guy's he's a better coach than either guy that's there.
Yeah, they've just found an answer to this Oilers team. It's a war of attrition out there, and the Oilers are still missing the pieces they were able to hide. But when this offense is not clicking on all cylinders, and something does seem off, it seems as though they just can't compete at this intensity in the playoffs.
One other thing that's really cool about it, you got Quenneville there. Don't forget Jay Woodcroft. Jay Woodcroft's the assistant coach in Anaheim. For the longest time, he worked in Edmonton. He was a head coach, he was an assistant coach, and he ran their farm team. So he's got a lot of internal knowledge on the Oilers.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, this is the second best coaching staff they've had on the Ducks ever since Emilio Estevez. I think that team was also quite good. I don't know if they were quite ready for the playoffs.
Won the Stanley Cup there. Come on.
Okay, let's move on to not too much to say about this. No surprise, the Avalanche sweep.
No. And you know what? I give LA a lot of credit. Outside of Game 4, most of those games were really tight.
They were competitive.
They competed. They couldn't score enough, to your point, and they couldn't defend well enough. And Anton Forsberg just wore out as the season went along, as the playoff went along. It was just too hard. Colorado's for real. We all see that. Depth players that are really good. A kid like Parker Kelly, who came from Ottawa. I still don't understand why Ottawa didn't keep him. You look at the way I guess the best way to describe it is their transition game is so good. And it's not one line or two lines, it's all four lines. Everybody there gets it, moves it, skates it. Gets it, moves it, skates. It's unbelievable how well they move the puck. Really good.
Pierre, Buffalo has now gone up 3-1 in their series, but I think it's fair to say that yesterday's performance was the first time things have completely clicked for them on all cylinders in this series, winning 6-1.
Yeah, because their forecheck games become really apparent, and they're wearing out the defense of the Boston Bruins. Nobody wanted to talk about that on the national broadcast yesterday. They all talked about the turnovers, but they didn't talk about why there were turnovers, because you got four lines of fury coming from Buffalo. And they get on you and they stick you to the board. And it's not vicious hits. It's just they put you in. They make you pay a price. Every single guy just knows. Even if they don't finish hard, they still finish. And it plants a seed of doubt in the minds of the defensemen for the Bruins. And they're having all kinds of puck management issues there. And that's not a good thing when you're playing against an opportunistic team like Buffalo. But I can't even imagine what it's going to be like outside in Buffalo before Game 5. It's going to be unbelievable.
I might have to go for a drive, Pierre. It's not that far from me. just to hang out. Maybe just to hang out for a little bit.
That'll be great.
Pierre, do the Pittsburgh Penguins have a realistic path to come back against these Flyers down 3-1?
I think they can force Game 6. I don't know if they get past Game 6, but I do think they can force Game 6. I do all the pregame shows there on their Pittsburgh Penguin radio network, and Paul Steigerwald and I were talking the other night, and he says, I hope this isn't our last show. I said, I already got it written into my schedule. We'll be working before Game 5. Now, I don't know if I'm going to write that before Game 6, but I do think they can force Game 6. And part of it is because Sid's gone to another level. And I think they realize in Pittsburgh, if you play into the way Philadelphia wants to play, you're not going to win. But if you play the way the Penguins play, then you got a chance to win. They have to play the way the Penguins can play, and that's with tempo, puck movement, and no after-the-whistle shenanigans.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to watch. I think you're right, Pierre. Going back home, it should help. They should do better this time through. The series that I had marked as the most intriguing of the first round, Minnesota and Dallas, it's certainly lived up to the hype. 2-2, and it's a deadlock.
Is it ever? And I think there are a lot of injured guys playing in this series that nobody wants to talk about. You can see it right from Game 1. There's been – you talk about a battle of attrition. I think there are a lot of guys showing. I don't know how much either one of these teams are going to have left for Colorado when they play Colorado. Think about it. This one's probably going 7, and Colorado's home and chilled out after 4. It's tough. But this is a great series, great to watch. Jesper Wallstedt's been phenomenal in goal for Minnesota. He's been better than Jake Ottinger. We'll see. Ottinger was really good in Game 2. He helped them get the series back on the rails, and he was good in Game 3. But the biggest thing for Minnesota is they can score so many different ways. They just can. They can score a lot of different ways. Dallas has to have pretty much the same guys all the time, and if they don't, then they're not going to win.
Yeah, it's a limited approach, but we'll see. It's intriguing to watch this play out. And as you say, will there be anything left in the tank for the next round after this, what's going to likely be a 6 or 7 game war? Yeah. And finally, Pierre, do you think the Utah Mammoth can secure their first ever playoff series victory in their first ever playoffs?
How about the atmosphere in that building?
Yeah.
I know it's wild in Montreal, and I know it's wild in Vegas and all these other places. That place is going off. It's great to watch. Logan Cooley's been good. Obviously, Dylan Guenther had an amazing year. Outside of maybe family, friends, and the fans in Utah, most people don't even know who Dylan Guenther is. He had a phenomenal year. Their defense is vastly underrated. I think they can. I still think Torch has the coaching advantage over Andre Tourigny, just based on experience. So we'll see if John can't come up with something to at least get this thing tied 2-2 going back to Vegas for Game 5. I can't believe all the extra days they've had in this series, both teams. It's just crazy. There's been no rhythm to the series because you play 1, you have day off, you play 2, you got a day off, then you got 5 days off. Like, it's no rhythm in the series at all. That's the only thing I don't like about it.
Yeah, it's tough to really break down how that one's going to go, but it's interesting, as you said, with the fan base, Pierre, because It's very different than Montreal. It's very different than these established team atmospheres. This is a second-year franchise that's seeing success early on, and there is no better way to establish long-term fan viability than to have success early on, and it's just not that easy in today's modern sports landscape.
It's such a good point, Kyle. It's so smart. I mean, I look at what they were so poorly run in Arizona. They were so poorly run. It was really sad to watch. They had a lot of good players too go through there, and it just was. And they had a lot of good coaches go through there. It's just so poorly run at the management and ownership level for so long. They've got a big time owner in Ryan Smith. They've got a very good general manager. So I think they've got a lot of good things going on. Billy Armstrong's done a great job as a GM, by the way, really good. But they've got a lot of good stuff going on there, and the fans are buying in. They love it, so it's great. The NHL should be counting their blessings, because honestly, that thing was in disastrous trouble in Arizona. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and Utah has proven itself to be a very good sports market. Of course,
really
the Jazz have been a long-time successful NBA franchise. Pierre, it seems as though all of these series will have been determined by the next time I talk to you. We'll be previewing round 2 next week, and it should be fascinating because as we stand today, we don't have a lot of answers as to who's going where and playing whom. But it should be an interesting week of hockey.
I'll be doing that show next Monday from Stockholm, Sweden, so I can't wait. Another hockey capital. I'll be there for the month of May before I go to Zurich for the World Championships. I'll be doing hockey work over there, so I'll have lots of good little tidbits for you. And one of the things I'm doing is with Glenn Healy from the NHLPA. He's doing such good work for the long-term care of a lot of former players. It's phenomenal to see. And spending time with Nicky Lidstrom and Matt Sundin and a bunch of other great Swedish players. So I'm pretty excited about it.
That's fantastic, Pierre. In that case, I will see you next week when you're in Sweden. I'll be right back here in Canada, and we'll do our best to communicate as well as we can. Let's keep it English and keep it light next week here.
You got it. Thanks a lot, Kyle. I appreciate
it.
Take care.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.